Hey everyone! Today we're going to start a new series on something called character strengths. For anyone who knows me, I really love positive psychology. I do not love toxic positivity where you're supposed to act like you're happy all the time. But really, in terms of studying psychology, we always start by learning the things that can go wrong with someone, the things that are wrong, where you're giving perhaps a negative diagnosis or a diagnosis of difficulty. But there's actually so much about humanity that is so incredible, and the ways we lift people up and grow and expand and support each other. So there's a field of psychology called positive psychology. What I thought we could do is bring that into the workplace a little bit more. I was interested in positive psychology, and the book I'm going to bring today, we're going to do a little reading time, is a book that I used in formulating the research study that ended up being my dissertation. But I also was studying, my field of study was industrial organizational psychology, which is business psychology. So I want to bring those together. The thing about character strengths is they're a little bit hard to explain in terms of how they were developed because there's so much research. I'm going to show you the size of this book for a second. Most of it's research, almost all of it. So it's a really amazing book, but we're not going to go into all of that today. But I try not to talk about anything that isn't backed by research. So I'm going to do story time. I'm going to read a little. That there are, based in the moral philosophies and religions that have come about throughout the thousands of years that humans have been here, there are things called virtues. And the virtues that they've distilled down these books through a research method called factor analysis, they've come up with 6 major virtues that people have. And they are as follows: wisdom, courage, humanity, justice, temperance, and transcendence. So the character strengths are the processes or mechanisms that go into defining those virtues. What we're going to do today, since I already had to spend a little bit of time talking about this, is just pick one of those virtues and the 3, in this case there'll be 3, character strengths that go into that. And what I thought was that this would be an amazing way to start thinking about yourself more positively and about other people more positively. So it's really easy to look at negative things about ourselves and say, oh, I could be stronger in this, I could be better in this. Well, you already have strengths. There's I don't know if I'd call it a psychological test, but there's a personality test about strengths, the Strength Finder. And it goes to look at what are you good at? And the idea is to really highlight the things you're great at, and don't try to build up as much the things you're weaker at. Of course, you always want to try to get better, and I talked about that concept before. But focusing on your negative means that you're downplaying these things that are already strengths, where you can add so much to society, your workplace, your family, your community, by really talking about those and thinking about those and emulating them even more. So today our virtue is going to be justice. First, I should probably define justice. So they say it is broadly interpersonal, relevant to the optimal interaction between the individual and the group or the community. So that justice is a place where we are bridging from the individual to the community or the group, and that justice is required to make that bridge. Okay, so you probably have your own definition of justice, and some obviously would be a lot different than how they talk about it here. But in terms of a virtue about being a just person, it is going to be made of these 3 strengths. The first is citizenship, which they also call social responsibility, loyalty, or teamwork. And a lot of the previous literature, research done on it has been around the words social responsibility and loyalty. So I will read you the definition. I kind of feel like Mr. Rogers here, who read books. Was it Romper? It was Romper Room. My bad. It's okay. Half you probably don't even know Romper Room. Okay, this character strength entails an identification with and sense of obligation to a common good that includes oneself, but stretches beyond one's personal interests to include the group of which one is a member. People with this strength have a sense of duty to the group in question and pull their own weight as group members, not because external circumstances force them, but because they regard it as what a group member should do. Excellent. Okay, so that's citizenship. I certainly see this. I moved to a community about 15 years ago that has this amazing network of a particular sorority and particular fraternity. And I had never been part of the Greek university system, so I wasn't really aware of all that can happen once you're out of college. And what I have always seen is the extent to which they support each other. They might be each other's friends, but even if they aren't, there is a resource to people. They help each other network. This person's going into business, needs a reference to talk to someone over here, and they'll network for them and help with the business. And the idea is they're always building each other up. You would never push down one of your group members or try to harm them or compete with them in business or anything like that. You're always looking to lift everyone up. That's a gorgeous thing. And obviously, if as an entire world we aim to lift each other up, what an extraordinary, extraordinary place it would be, as opposed to ever trying to put someone down. But we do try to put people down all the time. We don't like to think of it that way, but we do. And you see it in political situations all the time, and that kind of justice. But citizenship in this way can happen in your own company, your department, where you're always there to build each other up and support yourself as colleagues. You can think of your own company as a group you're part of, and thus you working for the company supports the company, and you're all in this together. You could also think of it just within your department with other people in the company. It could also be an informal networking situation where maybe you're a leader in the company and you offer maybe a mentorship program, either informally or formally. And generally speaking, people who are mentors or who start a mentorship program are high in the character strength of citizenship because they are looking for how to build everyone up. So that's something you might see in yourself, want to foster more in yourself, or see in other people, where even if you don't have a lot in common, you go, wow, that person does that. What kind of position could I put them in where we can help them show off that character strength? And I will say that is not necessarily a job title change. What it could be is going back to an informal mentorship program where you ask that person, whatever the role in the company is, to start mentoring newer people in, teaching them the ropes, whatever. And it could be a great thing for everyone, right? All right, so let's go to the next character strength involved in justice is fairness. Why did I put my glasses on? Because I have stuff to say about this. So you may or may not have heard Jeff Kingsley talk about the concept of fairness as being a very difficult one because it depends on the person's perspective. So how has that become a character strength? We're going to get into that. Actually, Dr. Kingsley and I wrote an article, an opinion piece about an ethical issue, and we went back to two broad philosophical ways of thinking about fairness. There's fairness to the group, which is a little bit what we were just talking about with citizenship, and there's fairness to the individual. For people who have ever seen the show MASH, where it was taking place during the Korean War, but the TV show was done during the Vietnam War, so it was supposed to be an obvious corollary. Anyway, it's a wartime, and this woman's baby is crying, and she's on a bus with a bunch of other people. They're in hiding. They're pretending the bus is abandoned. If the baby is heard crying, everyone on the bus will be killed or taken as a prisoner of war. So her choices are the baby or everyone else. So she makes a choice, and that is where it's the common good versus an individual, right? How do we take that into a character strength when in the workplace it's not going to be hopefully that life or death of a situation, but there are things where there's fairness, where maybe you have to lay people off because your business isn't doing well, or there's someone in the department who isn't pulling their weight. You've done all the coaching and performance improvement possible, but they simply aren't making it. It might be fair to the individual to keep them because they keep getting a paycheck and they're trying their best and whatever, but it's definitely not fair to the other people they're working with who are having to pull their load. In fact, if you terminate them, it might be that everyone else then gets to rely on a better person for that job who's hired instead. So what is fair is a hard thing. How does it work with character strengths then, since there is that moral dilemma? This is, I thought, pretty good actually. The character strength of fairness refers to an individual's treatment of other people in similar or identical ways, not letting one's personal feelings or issues bias decisions about others. Fairness involves giving everyone a fair chance and being committed to the idea that the same rules apply to everyone. That's key, right? So whatever the moral dilemma is, as long as you've chosen a way to be what you think is the right thing to do, is what you do with everybody, and you don't show favorites, you're being fair. That's what that one's saying. So you can definitely see it where, maybe you have company values and one person just consistently is not showing off that company value. Keeping them is not fair to everyone, and maybe that's okay or not okay depending on how you look at it. But if you would keep that person for not supporting the company values, then you would have to keep a person you don't like, even if they don't show the company values. It's just about having the same standard for everyone. And I'm sure we can think of many examples where people don't have the same fair standard, and that becomes a very difficult workplace to work in. There are many societal things around this as well, and that imbalance can be very, very difficult for people and usually creates a very toxic environment. So we'll stick with workplace and say that's very toxic. The third one is leadership. So I had never heard this about leadership before I read this book, and I love it. I'm not going to read you the definition. I'm going to read you just something else about it. It says, theorists concerned with leadership usually distinguish two tasks of any leader. First, getting the group members to do what they are supposed to do. And two, creating and preserving good relationships and morale among these members. So the idea is that you get people to do what they're supposed to do. We're all on the same page. We have the same expectations. We're good to go. And the other part is really about workplace, the environment, right? And it doesn't have to be workplace. It can be family. You don't want you want good morale in your family, in your community group, whatever it is. So if you look in business leadership, this type of leader is often called a transformational leader. You'll also see it maybe part of it is in servant leadership, where the idea is that to elevate the people who work with you, you either do it through your words, you're inspirational when you speak, or you do it by showing that behavior, right? So you are a do as you say, not as I did, whatever that saying is, whatever. You do what you say and you do what you expect other people to do. And it's kind of like the buck stops here is the example they give in the book. This is leadership is, I expect this level of quality, I'm going to show this level of quality, or I expect this core value and I'm going to show it and I expect you to show it, and that sort of thing. So that's it for today. I know this is a little more academic of a conversation, but I really love academic conversations for one thing, but I love philosophical conversations and how we can improve ourselves as people and improve the lives of the people around us. I'm not saying we should improve the people around us. I'm sure they're perfect the way they are, but we can improve how we interact with them, how we add value to the world by focusing on the positive psychology part of our lives. And so we'll go over more character strengths and virtues next time. Bye.